Hola chicos, espero que estén bien. Now comes the barrage of videos. Okay, so I promised you while we were still in session that we would talk about how you make the past subjunctive. And so I'm going to do that in this video, but we're also going to review the present subjunctive. And again, you have handouts with all this information, but I'm just going to go over it really quickly so you have another reference. So el subjuntivo exists in two simple tenses and multiple compound tenses. We're going to mainly focus on the simple tenses. The one you've already seen, present subjunctive, el presente subjuntivo, and then the one we're going to see today, el imperfecto de subjuntivo, is the past subjunctive. But there are also compound tenses. Earlier this semester, we were working with perfect tenses like he hablado, I have talked, han comido, they have eaten. And you can have present perfect and past perfect. So I have talked versus I had talked. And then the progressive tenses, which I am eating versus I was eating. So you can have a present and a past progressive. And then, of course, you can have present and past progressive hypotheticals in the subjunctive. All sorts of fun. Isn't Spanish fun? All right, so presente subjuntivo. This is review. For most verbs, the present subjunctive is formed by taking the yo form of the verb, dropping the o, and adding the opposite vowel ending. So if you have a verb like hablar, your yo form is hablo, you drop the o, and the opposite vowel ending is e, right? Because it's an AR verb. So it's es, hemos, es, en. So you have hable, hables, hable, hablemos, habléis, hablen. For ER-IR verbs, same thing. You're going to take the yo form. So, por ejemplo, tengo, tener yo is tengo. You're going to drop the o, and you're going to add the opposite vowel ending, which is a, as, a, amos, ais, an for ER and IR verbs. So tenga, tengas, tenga, tengamos, tengáis, tengan. That's how it's going to work for most verbs. Even irregular ones like tener, you still follow the rules. But we're going to go over the exceptions here. So any verb with an irregular yo form is going to have an irregular subjunctive form, but they follow the rest of the rules, right? So tener is tengo, but when you're making the subjunctive forms, you follow the same rules as you do with a regular verb. Poner is pongo, but still going to follow the rules. Conducir is conduzco, but you're still going to follow the rules. So ponga, pongas, ponga, pongamos, pongáis, pongan. Conduzca, conduzcas, conduzca, conduzcamos, conduzcáis, conduzcan. So you take the yo form, drop the o, add the endings. That's how it's going to work for most of the verbs. All right, exceptions. If there are verbs that end in cargarsar, they have spelling changes. Part of that's for pronunciation, part of it's for spelling rules. So we saw with the preterite, right, buscar, we'll change to busque for preterite. In the subjunctive, it's busque. The reason? Because if you just added e, right, you drop the AR, or you drop the O, so yo form is busco, you drop the O. If you just add the E, then it's going to be pronounced buso, but you don't want it to be buso because the verb is buscar. And in order to get the K sound, you need to change it to QU. So it's QUE, because K in Spanish is always spelled QUE. All right, pagar, same thing. If you drop the O, so yo form is pago, you drop the O and add the opposite vowel ending E, you would get paje, because G followed by E or I makes a H sound. So in order to make it ga, because the verb is pagar, you have to add the U. So it's pague, right? And spelling rule, this doesn't change the pronunciation at all, but Z always changes to C when it's followed by E or I in Spanish. So lanzar, lance, is going to be spelled with a C instead of a Z because Z is never followed by E or I in Spanish. Okay, now stem changing verbs. This is where it gets really fun, all the minutiae of verb forms. AR and ER verbs. The stem doesn't change in the nosotros and vosotros forms, but it does in all the other verb forms. So if you have a verb like poder, to be able to, your yo form is puedo, you drop the O, and then you add your opposite vowel ending. Pueda, puedas, pueda, and then ellos, ellas, ustedes puedan. But nosotros and vosotros don't have the stem change. So it's podamos and podáis, right? Remember your infinitive is poder. So you just take your infinitive, pod, and you add the opposite vowel ending, podamos, podáis. All right. When you go to IR verbs, similar, right? Yo, tú, él, ella, usted, ellos, ellas, ustedes all have the same stem change, but the nosotros and vosotros forms have a different stem change. Isn't that fun? Okay, so if you have a verb like preferir, to prefer, the yo form is prefiero. So you're going to drop the O and add your opposite vowel ending. So prefiera, prefieras, prefiera, prefieran for the ellos ustedes form. But the nosotros and vosotros stem is now an I instead of the original, which is an E, or instead of the other stem changes, which is IE. So instead of being prefieramos, it's prefiramos. Okay. And then the same thing is true for O to UE verbs, as long as they're IR verbs. Remember, we're only talking about IR verbs. AR and ER verbs don't do this. So dormir, the yo form is duermo. You drop the O, add the opposite vowel ending. So duerma, duermas, duerma, and duerman for the other four forms. But the nosotros and vosotros forms change to you. So durmamos, duermais. Now, how important are these stem changes? I'm so glad you asked. If you say dormamos or dormais, right, if you don't make the stem changes, people will still understand you. However, if you get it wrong in Blackboard, it will be counted wrong. So for the purpose of our homework, pay attention. For the purpose of communication, don't use your brain cells this way. It's not a good use of brain cells. Okay, other irregulars. Caber technically isn't an irregular verb. It has an irregular yo form, but it's a very low frequency verb. So I just counted it as an irregular. But dar, estar, haber, ir, saber, and ser are irregulars, and they have all irregular forms, and you just have to memorize them. I have made a sheet. They are actually on the handout that I've given you in class. You can use that link to see what they are. But those you just have to memorize. All right. Past subjunctive, let's go. Imperfecto y subjuntivo, there are no irregulars. There are no exceptions. But that's the good news. The bad news is that the base form for the past subjunctive is the preterite ellos, ellas, ustedes form. And if you remember our preterite verb form sheet, there's a ton of irregular verbs in the preterite. So once you know the ellos, ellas, ustedes form in the preterite, it's quite easy, but learning all of the ellos, ellas, ustedes forms in the preterite is daunting because there are so many irregular verbs in the preterite. Anyway, what you do is you take that form, right? It's going to end in aron or ieron, most of them, and you drop the on and then add your ending. And more good news, AR, ER, and IR verbs all have the same ending, so it's always amos, ais, an. So you have hablaron for hablar, you drop the on, and then you add your endings. Comieron for comer, you drop on and add your endings. Salieron, drop the on, and then you add your endings. So it will look like this. Hablara, comiera, saliera for the O form. Hablaras, comieras, salieras for the to form. Hablara, comiera, saliera, etc., etc., etc. Note that the nosotros form has an accent on this vowel right here. Habláramos, comiéramos, saliéramos. None of the rest of the forms have accents. Okay, as I said, there are no irregular verbs in the imperfect subjunctive, so they all follow that pattern. Once you know the preterite ellos, ellas, ustedes form, you know how to make the past subjunctive. But again, ton of irregular verbs in the preterite, so you can find my list here. If you go to this link, this is my handout that I've given you of verbs in the preterite. So for example, tener, irregular. Tuvieron is the ellos, ellas, ustedes form. You drop the on, your stem, go back. Para atrás, there we go. Then your stem is going to be tuvier. So tuviera, tuvieras, tuviera, tuviéramos, tuvierais, tuvieran. Decir, the ellos, ellas, ustedes form in the preterite is dijeron, drop the on, here's your stem, add your endings. Leer, the ellos, ellas, ustedes form, leyeron, drop the on, then you have your stem here, leyer, leyera, leyeras, leyera, etc. Okay? Fácil. All right, really quickly and very low on the priority list here, perfect tenses. So we saw earlier this semester, haber with the past participle, like I have talked or I had talked. There's the subjunctive of haber, right? So he hablado is the present indicative, okay, present perfect indicative. The subjunctive form of haber is haya, hayas, haya, hayamos, hayáis, hayan in the subjunctive, in the present subjunctive, right? So you would have like haya hablado. I have talked, but now it's a hypothetical. Then the past subjunctive, imperfecto y subjuntivo, The verb forms are hubiera, hubieras, hubiera, hubiéramos, hubierais, hubieran. Skip the vosotros form. Whoops, you don't need it anyway. And so you would have hubiera tenido, I had, but a hypothetical. Anyway, those are not very important, but that's how you form them. I shouldn't say they're not important. They're not high on our priority list right now with where we're at in language acquisition. They're kind of above where we're at. So progressive tenses, estar with a present participle, like I am talking, they are eating, we are going out. You use the estar in the present subjunctive is esté, estés, esté, estemos, estéis, estén, and then you add the participle, hablando, comiendo, saliendo, and then the past subjunctive, estuviera, estuvieras, estuviera, estuviéramos, estuvierais, estuvieran, and then add your participle, saliendo, comiendo, and that is how you make the past, present, and past progressive subjunctive. Oh, that's a mouthful. All right, reference sheet. All this information is available right here. Go here, check out the reference sheet. Knock yourselves out with Blackboard, guys.